Well, I think Matt is touching on a very interesting point that, how the U.S. responds to these nations is largely dependent on how the average American views these countries. And, someone might say I get that what China does in these countries is horrible, but I can't afford gas. Why should I care what happens in these Pacific Island nations?
Yeah. So it's not all about money, but if it were about money, then there are things that can be done to help the Pacific Islands become much more financially independent and obviate a lot of these issues. One of the main one is around fisheries. A lot of, these are very fish-rich countries. Tongue twister I managed to avoid. And if they're given, but basically they're making money off of the licenses. They give licenses and get very small amounts of money off of that. But if they're given the capacity to process the fish on shore, then that gives much more employment and creates a whole sector of jobs: fisheries management, technicians, scientists, aquaculture. That then gives them a lot more independence. So it doesn't have to just be economic. But even with that, there's enormous bipartisan support in Congress, especially for the whole Pacific. There have been several congressional hearings on it recently, and there's a high awareness of the sacrifices that the people of the region made during World War II, but also the three freely associated states. They have a very high proportion of people who serve in the U.S. military, more so than most U.S. states. And there's a lot of back and forth, and the ties are very deep. And as a result, huge bipartisan support in Congress for the Pacific Islands in general, specifically for the freely associated states. There have been over half a dozen bipartisan letters to Congress during this administration alone, asking for a resolution of some of these outstanding issues. And this administration has been responding. They recently appointed a negotiator, presidential level negotiator for the compacts of free association, which are up for renewal. They've announced the opening of a new embassy in the Solomon Islands. And I think there might be more announcements along those lines. So the U.S. is starting to catch up. What happened was at the end of the Cold War, there was a real pulling back. And some of the structural responses are still in that mindset. So in that way, this agreement between the Solomons and China, or between Sogavari and China, has shocked the system. And so the system is devoting more resources to figuring out what to do about it. And if the right mechanisms are put in place, then it could be, in fact, very, very helpful in the long run.
Well, I'm glad to hear that Congress has been, has bipartisan support on this. But again, this is still an issue of this past week, everyone was talking about Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. How do you get them to care about the Pacific?
Send Will Smith to the Federated States of Micronesia.
Have him slap Xi Jinping.
This is the thing. The CCP can't help itself in terms of overreach, right? And it helps trigger these other responses. So the first barrier to break through was actually in the case of the Solomons, the barrier in Canberra in Australia, because they really hadn't been taking it seriously, and the U.S. was relying on them. And now we all know it doesn't work. What they're doing isn't working. And so just in the last few weeks, you've seen the dynamic changing substantially. And again, this goes back to what do you have to do about it? So they finally had the leader of the Solomon Islands opposition on Sky News in Australia. And on Sky News, he talked about what was going on in terms of his relationship with the Australian High Commissioner. So this is similar to what Australia did actually to try to clean China out of its own system, where the intelligence community started leaking stuff to the press, and it became much more difficult, if not untenable, to be on the take from China in Australia, because you might get called out and have your career destroyed. So as they're starting to call out what's going on within the system, the Australian media is allowing the Solomon Islanders to speak directly to the larger Australian system. Some of these walls are starting to crack and opening up for more options. And now we'll see what their response is. But the Solomon situation has catalyzed Japan, for example, and India, the Quad partners, because these are countries that are fundamental for a free and open Indo-Pacific. So it affects India, it affects Japan, and that pressure coming from those other sides, it affects South Korea on Washington and on the strategic community means more resources for analysis, but it also means a whole different set of people are being brought in for the analysis, which might broaden the palette of responses that could be brought to bear. So, we're at a kind of a point where things could continue on a lackadaisical, dangerous direction. They could get much worse, or they could actually get much better now. So I'm grateful to you and to the listeners for listening to me ramble on, because this is I think, probably a very dynamic and important area and the new front line for China, which needs to be discussed and addressed and countered.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Cleo, to talk about these issues and help raise the awareness, because as you said, there's been a real lack of good reporting on this situation in the media. There's not a lot of good information. People need to know about it.
Well, actually, so there's some pretty good information being reported in that. So I normally say read the Indian media. Now I can tell you, go read the Solomon Islands media or go read the Tongan media, But as with India, some of the best reporting is happening in local languages. So that could be a little bit of an impediment. But that's where the stories are being broken. And I'm very grateful to my colleagues in the media in the Pacific Islands for the reporting that they're doing, because it's essential for entire Indo-Pacific security at the moment.
How would you like to go to the Pacific Islands, Chris?
I'm already there. Well, yeah, thanks again for joining us, Cleo. It's always fascinating what you bring to the show.
So thank you for the opportunity, and I'll change back to what I was wearing before and drop this fake backdrop. And
it's very realistic looking, especially the radiator.
Yeah, I'm staying at a friend's house, and they've got this like polo poster on the wall. You see, I've never seen them have anything to do with polo. I have no idea where it came from. So when you stay at a friend's house and you're like, why do you have that on the wall? I don't quite understand. But I think the answer is your answer, which is just the fake brick wallpaper, and carry it with me, and that I won't have those issues.
Hey, we never said this was fake. We just didn't say it was real.
It's real brick wallpaper.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Cleo.
Thanks a lot. Okay, bye.
Yeah, it's really great to be able to have someone as knowledgeable as Cleo on and talk about these very important issues that just a lot of people don't know about. So I would really encourage anyone watching to, please share what you've learned with your friends and family, because this is important and not enough people are talking about it.
Suddenly bring up the Solomon Islands during dinner.
Yeah, or with somebody on the subway.
Yeah.
With somebody on the subway.
Yeah.
That would require talking with someone on the subway.
Have you heard about the Solomon Islands?
Well, so I like your idea, Chris, about sending a celebrity to these Pacific Islands, and then there'll be some kind of media coverage.
I think I said that, but okay.
No, I
Shelley, I like your suggestion. That was definitely your original idea.
Incorrect.
Totally not Shelley's.
I said send Will Smith there so we could slap Xi Jinping.
Oh, no,
and then you made it.
I said send Will Smith to the Federated States of Micronesia.
Hold on, guys. This is very important that we sort this out.
As you said something about having Will Smith slap Xi Jinping.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Xi Jinping is not in the South Pacific.
The point is to get, his influences. No. The point is to get celebrities involved.
Yes.
So you
the
can
point
somehow
listen, guys,
get Will Smith to slap Xi Jinping's influence?
Yeah. That's what I meant. Everyone got that except for you, Shelley.
No, listen, here's the idea, which, by the way, is my original idea. I don't know why you guys are even talking about this. My idea is to send celebrities to these islands, and then there will be media coverage because they are celebrities, and what wealthy, successful people do is inherently more important than what we do. And therefore, there will be coverage.
So you're saying we should send Chris to
I am not a wealthy celebrity by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, you're a celebrity by some small stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I'm a YouTuber.
Well, YouTubers are the new something. I don't know.
That's true. I mean, before Hollywood, celebrities wouldn't have been a thing, really.
Yeah, they didn't even have the tubes back then.
Okay, but how are we going to get celebrities to the South Pacific?
Well, I mean, Hollywood is known for standing up to the Chinese Communist Party.
No, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can get NBA players to also speak up.
Maybe a former NBA player.
Enes Kanter. Freedom.
Well, okay, so we've got plan A, which is just randomly bring up the Solomon Islands to people on the New York subway, and plan B, which is to send celebrities there.
Bring it up to people in a variety of circumstances. It doesn't have to be just the subways. I mean, that wouldn't make sense in parts of the country without subways.
In LA, you would just have to, shout to people in traffic?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's perfect. You're stuck in traffic, roll down your window. Back in the days when you had to roll down the window, shout over, "Hey, did you hear about the Solomon Islands?" What? The Solomon Islands.
It's amazing to me that we have 1.74 million subscribers on YouTube.
Not on this channel.